Welcome to LJG Sports. Should the Texans trade for Tyreek Hill? I've seen that the Texans are a team frequently linked to a Tyreek Hill trade. Obviously, it looks like a lot of people think Texans need more wide receiver help, whether it's the draft or whether it's a trade like for Tyreek Hill. And like I said, there's a bunch of teams mentioned for Tyreek Hill. I see a lot, but Texans are definitely one of them, one of the more frequent ones. And it's almost very similar to what we did last year when we traded for Stephon Diggs. But I feel like this scenario is slightly different and why I think Texans should or should not trade. Before you hear my take, let me know down below what you think. Should the Texans trade for Tyreek Hill? I haven't seen any specifics of what the Texans would give up. Let's say it's about what they gave up for Stephon Diggs, maybe a little more. Would you, as a Texan fan, want Tyreek Hill to be traded to the Texans? Me personally, I would say no. As terrific as Hill is, he's also 31, and I'm not saying that he is falling off by any means. He had a good productive season last year. He would be, I think, better than Stephon Diggs was for the Texans last year. But I would think it would take maybe slightly more. And even if it took what we gave up for Stephon Diggs last year, I just would not add Tyreek Hill. And there's a couple of reasons why. First off being that I don't think the Texans are in dire need of a wide receiver. I know a lot of people think we need a wide receiver. They think we should draft a wide receiver first round or trade for a big wide receiver like Tyreek Hill. And for me personally, I don't think that we need a Tyreek Hill. I don't think we need a McMillan from Arizona. I don't think we need a star wide receiver because, one, we're getting Tank Dell back in hopefully a year. And whether the injuries continue or not, I think that's a decision that and a course of action we take when and if that happens. Pray to God that it doesn't. But again, we're not going to get Tank Dell next year, more than likely. And so it would be nice to have a wide receiver 3. But again, we have guys like John Mechie, we have guys like Xavier Hutchinson who have potential and have upside, and possibly, if just given the chance, would flourish. I think a guy like John Mechie, who in college, he had that injury. We drafted him day 2, and then he had leukemia, obviously. And so I don't feel like he's been the same player since. And I feel like if he can just get a glimpse of that, I feel like we'll be in a good spot. I don't think Texans need that much help as wide receiver as much as they do need it at the O-line, whether it's guard or tackle, or even center. So I feel like Texans should put their draft needs. I feel like 3 of their first 4 picks should be offensive line in this coming draft. I think if the wide receiver falls to you, it's okay to take him in round 1, but then you have to draft 3 offensive linemen with the next 3 picks. So I don't think Texans needing a wide receiver that much is that big of an issue. Even if you go back to the Texans' last game against the Chiefs in the playoffs, yeah, we lost, and wide receiver help would have helped, but we didn't have Stephon Diggs or Tank Dell in that game. We had Nico and everyone else. And C.J. Stroud actually played really well, despite not having 2 of his top wide receivers and also the line being abysmal. Actually, in that game, C.J. Stroud got pressured as much as Patrick Mahomes did in the Super Bowl against the Eagles. And we saw how Patrick Mahomes performed in that Super Bowl. So considering that and putting that in perspective, C.J. Stroud actually played really well. And just to think, if we gave him a decent offensive line, what he could have done in that game. I think wide receivers are overrated in the league, or in the sense that guys like CeeDee Lamb should not be paid about $40 million a year, because I don't think wide receivers are irreplaceable at all. I think if you have a good line in place and you have a quarterback in a system that works, then the wide receivers will get open. I don't feel like a guy like CeeDee Lamb is going to be that much more of a difference than a John Mechie, or at least like a $35 million difference than a guy like John Mechie, in my personal opinion. So I would say no, not only because the Texans don't need a wide receiver that much to me anyway. I think it's risky for a player like Tyreek Hill. Obviously, it's very similar, like I said, to Stephon Diggs. There's things like the the field issues that he had with the Dolphins, that kind of diva, typical wide receiver mentality. But it's also mainly because I don't buy that the Texans couldn't turn him around just like they did Stephon Diggs. Stephon seemed to be great with the Texans last year, in the locker room, at least, from what we could see. The main issue I have with Tyreek Hill is his $27.7 million cap hit this year. So that's my main thing. I don't want to be paying Tyreek Hill $27.7 million when he wouldn't even be the best wide receiver on this team, which is Nico Collins. Nico Collins is our number one wide receiver. He's one of the most talented, I think, top 5 talented wide receiver in the league, only behind guys like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, the top guys, maybe even CeeDee Lamb. And he has that connection already with CJ Stroud. They seem to have a good connection, and it looks like Nico will be wide receiver number 1. And then we have Kirk that we got from the Jaguars. He'll be wide receiver number 2 likely. I just feel like we need a decent wide receiver 3. We don't need another star wide receiver, especially one who's going to be getting paid almost $30 million next year. So yeah, the whole drama king thing and off the field issues, yeah, it should rightfully scare teams away. But again, that's not the main issue. I think the main reason the Texans should not pull this trade is, one, we can get a cheaper, inexpensive wide receiver in the draft. Possibly even a guy like Emeka Egbuka, who would be a dream scenario for the Texans to get. And it's just, I don't think we need one nearly as much as people are making out to be. And it would take more. Not only would we have to trade possibly a first or a couple of second rounders, we don't need to give that up. We can draft one this year, and hopefully between this guy, the wide receiver we draft in this upcoming draft, between him, John Mechie, and Xavier Hutchinson, one of them can come out on top as the clear wide receiver number 3, and they will hopefully play decent. Just, again, somewhat decent. We don't need a Tyreek Hill. Just play serviceable, and that would be great. If they could play like Robert Woods did, not last year but the year prior, that would be amazing, and I would be totally fine with that coming from our wide receiver number 3. So yeah, let me know down below what you think, if Texans should pull the trigger on this trade, if they shouldn't, if they should trade for another wide receiver. Let me know who it is, and let me know who you think the Texans should draft in this upcoming draft as far as wide receiver goes, or if we don't think we should draft a wide receiver at all.